Hey guys, welcome back to Moko Talks. My name is Moko, and today's topic is gonna be about indie game developers going at it on LinkedIn of all places. So basically, if you guys haven't heard, there's a new game that came out like 3 months ago called Manor Lords. So Manor Lords is a medieval city builder game which has like large scale tactical battles and complex economic and social simulation. It's a very interesting game. I played it for like 12 hours. I have 12 hours in the game. It's quite honestly one of the few games the city builders that I've played that actually caught my attention. And it has caught the attention of many other people, including developers, which had some sort of opinion about all this and what's going on with the game. So if you don't know who is the main culprit of such um, controversial take, if you would say, is Raphael van Lierop, which is the founder, CEO, chief creative officers at Hinterland. If you don't know who that is, who the publisher is, and Hinterland is the publisher that produced The Lone Dark, which is also a very interesting and quite popular game that focuses on surviving the coldness. You know, it has a story mode, it has a survival mode, etc., etc. So, well, let's be what brought on this stuff. So I don't know why Raphael took it upon himself to comment on Manor Lords, but after he said what he said, the publishers at Manor Lord, or the developers at Manor Lord, actually came back with a rebuttal. So before we read the rebuttal, before we read anything, let's first jump into Raphael van Lierup's own post about what he basically said. So let's get into it. So Manor is a pretty interesting case study in the pitfalls of early access development when a game with a small team and heavily marketed as such hits the reality of a hungry audience. I should preface this by saying I own the game, have played it extensively, and generally really love what is here. What's in the game is also a very high quality, so there's no issue with any of that. But there's very little to it. It launched with a pretty strong base game, but without much content. A heavily system-centric game needs either a range of maps, game modes, or some amount of proc-gen dynamism to keep it fresh. Manor Lords has none of those things, so once you play 5-10 rounds of the game, there's nothing more to do. The fixed map and resourcing simplicity means there are not many different permutations and of the early game because the starting conditions are almost always the same. This is not great for an RTS city builder. Now let's take a pause here. So what he said is basically true. I'm not against what he said. I did feel the same way when I first started the game. Heck, it really started to affect me in that way. I really want to have updates there as well, but the game is still good. I mean, this is what you can criticize for it. I agree, but given the game complexity and how you can literally change the game modes when you play, you try to make it more difficult for yourself or more easier, or maybe this time you will build on this place or that place, etc., etc., etc. There is very different variety of way you can approach every single game that you start within within Manor Lords, and I'm quite surprised he has that idea that the game doesn't have that much. Again, it's in early access, so it's very normal for it to have such low game content, because this game with such complexity and such uh, depthness, it needs some time to put out there some updates regarding the game. And from what I understand, the developers for this game, which is Slavic Magic, is taking their time, slowly and surely building this game world. And I honestly agree, because it does take a while, it does take a lot of effort to make this game what it is, and to put forward game modes or maps that are historically correct, and or that could benefit the player and give them more enjoyment. Well, let's get back into what he was saying. So this in and of itself is not a huge problem, provided you can keep the game updated frequently, and you're able to expand with new systems and content for players to experience those systems in. But the Manor Lord team is small. The game was built super slowly by a super small team, and there's no way, given that, the project can scale up quickly to meet demand. It's practically part of the game's brand based on how heavily it was promoted as being made by a solo dev. As a result of the lack of updates, the CCUs have plummeted since launch, which isn't that unusual. It's the current trend for a lot of early access titles that blow up these days. But given the huge number of wish lists and hype around it leading up to launch, this is something the developers and publishers should have been better prepared for, in my own opinion. Early access is a marathon, and when you launch, you need to have your next major content expansion pretty much in the queue. The game has been out for 2.5 months, and there have been 3 fairly small patches with no features or content. Well, honestly, it's again, what he's saying is not wrong per se, but it's not also very true. You know, every game has its own way of growing, you know, and this game is very slow. It's apparent, and you know, maybe some players are done with it, maybe other players aren't. To me specifically, when I'm feeling like I want to play something chill and relax, you know, I fire up Manor Lords. It is what it is. You know, you don't have to push the developers to want more content or need more content, and the game isn't bad in its current state for it needing this major update. Like, in my opinion, the game that actually needs the major update is No Rest for the Wicked, because you're at the end of the game, you know, you need something to do, you're bored, and then they did give you some dailies and weeklies, but it became so repetitive so early on. But Manor Lords is not as much influenced to be, or not influenced by, for a better word, it's not susceptible to be repetitive, as you can literally build your town in a lot of different ways, a lot of different times. So I think there's no danger of a lot of people being bored of it. Even if there has been a lot of people being bored of it, it's basically because some other new games are going out and they're still in early access, and a lot of people put early access games aside until that big major update comes around. And for a game like Manor Lords, there is time. Like, just chill, relax, the update's gonna come, and when it comes, it's gonna bring a lot of people back into it, even if people are now, you know, tired of it. Let's get back into it. So as such, I put the game aside and don't expect to look at it again for another 6 months, at which point I'll probably be focused on playing something else. It's really hard to get people's attention back once you've lost it. If you're about to launch a highly anticipated game on early access, you have a clear content plan for the first 3 months of post-launch development. You need to release 2-3 major updates with new content and features, in addition to whatever hotfixes you need to roll out within that time frame to keep people engaged and confident that game will continue to evolve. Again, this may apply for games that are in need of content a lot of times, like Warframe, for example. Like, you can't have so many people keep redoing and replaying the same content over and over and over and over again and expect them to keep in the game. You need that next big major update as soon as possible to keep people, you know, attention. But Manor Lords isn't that type of game. It's a world builder. It's a simulator, you know, so really doesn't need to keep that people, you know, to keep grab of people's attention, because it's not that fast-paced of game. And whenever any person who's gonna play Manor Lords, he's gonna just like, well, say, I need like a relaxing game to play in, so let me just fire up Manor Lords and build me a little bit of city, a town, and enjoy myself for a sec, you know, take myself away from the high paced, high skill, fast paced games, and just, you know, chill. And that's what Manor Lords is. That's why it really doesn't need an update right now, or like a huge update like the next month, or we're gonna lose. No, and trust that the developers at Slavic Magic to know what they're doing, man. It's not an issue. Anyway, so that was Raphael van Leeurop's post. He has since updated his post by saying, To clarify points, since this post seems to have received some unwarranted attention, I'm deeply anti-crunch and always put team health first, so much so that anti-crunch statement is one of the first things you see when you launch our game. I'm in no way claiming Manor Lords isn't a huge success. I'm talking specifically about early access strategies below. So why did he mention the anti-crunch type of thing? So because after he made that post, the developer came back to him with his own statement, as stated by Eurogamer. Let me just switch. So this is his own rebuttal. The devs at Slavic Magic. Devs should not be forced to run on a treadmill until their mental health or physical health breaks, says publisher. Success should not create an ever-raising bar of new growth expectation. So Manor Lord's publisher has hit back at claims the game is an interesting case study in the pitfalls of early access, stating that assuming games can continue endless growth causes no much trouble in the game industry. Responding to a post on LinkedIn, which from Hunterland CEO, as we spoke about before, and this is what he said. So this is exactly the kind of distorted endless growth burden of expectations line must go up perspective that caused so much trouble in the gaming industry. Bender wrote, Manor Lords just sold 250,000 copies in the last month. That's insane for an early access game. After selling over 2 million copies in its first 3 weeks, and has a very positive review rating of 88% with a median playtime of 8 hours for 8 minutes per player. Very long for any game, especially a recent released one. Again, like I said, this is how the game is. This is how Manor Lord is. Players are happy, the developer is happy, and we as publisher are thrilled beyond belief. I need to stop a little bit. I need to correct myself. I said this was the developer that said this, but actually the publisher, Hooded Horse, that said this about their developers and their response to Raphael. Anyway, and yet here we are. Manor Lords is apparently a case study in the pitfalls of early access, because the game has been out for 2.5 months and there has been 3 fairly small patches. So they're quoting what Raphael said. One of the patch notes being called small here runs over 3,000 words and over 10 single-spaced pages, leading to CCUs have plummeted since launch. Yes, we didn't maintain the 173,000 concurrent player peak, and the apparently dark reality that some people, after enjoying their purchase of a premium single-player title, might decide to go and play another game. The horror. So basically what he means here is that the game is very successful. They haven't had their high concurrent players, but they attest that the game is a single player game, and it's very normal for what's going on for a single player title. It's not like a live servers game, it's not a multiplayer game, so there's really no reason for Raphael to mention that the game is not being a success, like a pitfall of early access, as he said. Bender goes on to say that before Manor Lords was released, they had a chat with its sole developer, Greg Steichen. So basically this game, even though it has a developer company, it's like one developer. That's insane to make this kind of game, by the way. It's a comment. So the publisher told him that after release, he was going to hear from all sorts of commenters talking about missed opportunities because he failed to grow as fast as they wanted, and judging the game a failure by some kind of expectation they formed. I told him to ignore all that, focus on his core vision for the game, and to keep in mind that the early access road is long and that he should not feel any sense of pressure from the expectations of others, both his own health and his stress level over the coming years, and for preserving the state of calm and peaceful mind that supports his creative vision. Honestly, I'm very happy to hear a publisher talking like that to his developer, after we hear the horror stories that publishers do with other developing studios, like EA did with BioWare, or many of its other studios out there, or Ubisoft, or any other publisher that basically forces their developers and forces their studios to release the games or release updates as soon as possible without having it quality assured, without having it finished and polished, and this is the problem with this in the gaming industry at the moment. Everything needs to happen fast, and there's really no studio out there taking a breather, and working on his game without having to consistently put out updates or maps or game modes, you know, that are broken, bug-filled messes. If this industry to continue, if this industry is to find a more sustainable path forward, we need to move away from takes like this. But the conclusion, success should not create an ever-raising bar of new growth and expectation. Not every game should be aimed at becoming some live service boom or bust. I am so happy he said this. And the release should not begin an ever-accelerating treadmill on which devs are forced to run until their mental and physical health breaks down. And this concludes basically with this, and let's give our own take about this. I'm very pleased of what the Hooded Horse, the publisher at Hooded Horse, said there. It's a breath of fresh air to hear publishers talk about this and taking care of their devs, and people like Raphael, who are honestly are a cancer on the industry. I understand he let out a statement against what he said, like clarifying that he's anti-crunch, etc., but yet you can be anti-crunch and criticize gaming studios for basically going at their own pace. It really feels like this CEO is basically jealous of Manor's explosive popularity of what they published, because The Lone Dark is still, as I understand, has not released in episode 5 yet. The story has been concluded for 10 years now, and a lot of people have been saying this because of the community wants this, etc. It really does feel like Raphael is throwing stones from a glass house. You cannot put your fellow developers down like this, especially indie developers. Indie developers have a very special place in my heart. I really do love them. I love all their works. I buy early access games just to, you know, support them, you know, and give out really good reviews or you know, bad ones, depending on, you know, I criticize the good stuff and the bad stuff, and I say what's going on, what's not going on. I bought Manor Lords and No Rest for the Wicked, and you have seen my videos on the No Rest for the Wicked early access review, and I honestly wish people would stop being absolute asshats on social media in the gaming industry. I really want to stop seeing developers being this kind of a douchebags. I'm sorry, Raphael, I understand this is very harsh, but your post was very meaningless. You should not have targeted Manor Lords in a way for you to say something about the early access pitfalls, as you say, the early access development. You could have just made a broad post, a broad statement, not targeting a single game, and yet here we are. It's very distasteful. It's very immature. It's very unprofessional for a person of your position as a CEO, and I do hope you learn from this post, and I do hope I really wish you had deleted it, man, like honestly. Anyway, so if you guys haven't seen Manor Lords, I really urge you guys to play the game. It's very relaxing. It's very difficult if you don't know what you're doing. You have to really get into it, and it's one of those games that makes you sit down and play for like 5-6 hours without even realizing it. And with that said, it's been nice being here. If you've reached the end of this video, please do leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy my content and want to see more of it, and I bid you all farewell. Ciao for now. Bye bye.